Is there a two-pocket flannel shirt? I asked. My dad always wore one. It's not like that, the sheriff calmly told me. I wondered if maybe Dad slept shirtless that night, but then it struck me that the fibers of the shirt must have burned away. I was jerked from my thought when the sheriff asked, "Did your dad wear any jewelry?" "Like a ring?" I asked curiously. "He has 2 silver rings. One has an engraving on it, like a maze, and one is just a silver band." I was told that there were 2 rings, and one had an engraving. When I pick up Dad's urn at the funeral home in Syracuse, I was handed Dad's rings in a medical examiner plastic baggie. I was holding the urn and the silver rings in my hand. A vision of the barn came to me, the firemen searching for him. These rings came right from the fire to my palm, and I curled my hand around the baggie. The rings were coated in soot. These rings had been there on Dad's finger during the blast and the fire at his home. He had laid there wearing these rings. In Lower Manhattan, I walk over to a jewelry store with the rings. I had the silver band cleaned up, but I asked that the ring with the maze design not be cleaned up too much, just enough to get some of the soot off. I wanted to keep this maze-like ring in its natural form, the way it had been on Dad's finger when he died, to keep it raw, a part of him, the crevices of the ring blackened by the smut. It made me feel closer to him in his final moments. I listen to Dad on my cell phone while the autumn sun hits my cheek, and I sigh with him when he tells me about being evicted from a house he lives in near my high school. "Hang in there, Dad, hang in there," I tell him. In my other ear, I hear the chatter of the city below, cars rushing by in downtown Manhattan near Water Street. I just turned 24, and I have just met Todd. He hadn't met my father yet. I'm outside up on the deck, sitting in a lounge chair and writing in my journal at Todd's apartment while he is at work. It's my favorite place to write and think. I'm at ease with the isolation up here, the gray buildings around me, while Dad lays out a timeline of all the places he has lived in the past month. An apartment of a friend, his car for a couple nights, and he mentions 3 nights in a homeless shelter. I look at the pointy edges of buildings framing the sky above. It was taken when he was taking a shower at the shelter, he tells me. I know the ring, a thick silver ring with a maze design engraved on it. I always noticed the intricate design. Dad's angry. I can tell how much it frustrates him to lose this ring. And he starts talking about selfishness and scoundrels and how much he wants some peace and quiet and to find some value and purpose in life again. I could help people, he suddenly says. I could help people like myself, he adds. Years after this phone call, while looking at his health records from the clinic after he died, I see the 3 days he spent at the rescue mission following the eviction. It reads that he was planning to apply for public assistance. In capital letters, I see that he is homeless and unemployed. It takes me a minute to really take that in and think about that, where I was, where he was. I can see he had filled in a questionnaire about his education. Through his answers, I learned where he went to college, the years he went, and what he was studying. I see that he attended Mexico Academy in Mexico, New York. He went to Corning Community College. I see that he transferred to Oswego and then Binghamton. And in between there, he had met Mom and also enlisted in the military. After he died, I will hunt down like a sleuth for his transcripts and diploma from Binghamton, wanting to see the timeline of where and when. His major at Binghamton was social science and psychology. On the phone with him, right now I think to myself he needs some social services. He is saying he's creating a resume at a community center. I push aside that inspiring feeling inside of me from that fit modeling job I had booked recently with Teen Vogue, trying on clothes and shoes that a celebrity cover actress would wear. I imagine what Dad's shoes look like right now. That's good, I tell him. I really don't want to talk about resumes. A part of me wishes I had pursued a lucrative advertising job and could help him. My emotions yanked from caring too much to not wanting his problems to become mine. I want to sip my coffee, work on my writing, stay focused. I was starting to get some publicity in the city newspapers for my story on working in the modeling industry as a shorter model. I've got to go. I've got to go run to the train. I have a meeting near Union Square. I don't want to listen to his complaints and his restless breath while he tells me he's having lunch some days at a community center. Sometimes he does his laundry there, he says, and he can always call me from there, he confirms. The weight of a pendulum swinging, taking deep plunges between the fast-paced momentum of possibility in my day that I want to keep alive and the slow drag of uncertainty that is his. I listen for a few minutes longer. I listened lately for the sake that he had listened to me when I felt uncertain almost a year ago. Last fall I vented to him before I left the apartment in Astoria that I couldn't afford anymore, carrying with me only what I could carry when I left. I was unsure about my next moves when I was sleeping on friends' couches and using my resources and running for the subway to a modeling go-see, believing in the chance on the way there and pondering my choices on the way back. I wrote in my journal about this being all a waste. Maybe I should go get a corporate job. Maybe I just need another chance to really make it. My portfolio was getting stronger. The door had opened, but it was getting more unrealistic as the days went by to hold it open. For food, I ate Wendy's dollar menu. I fixed the scuffs on my shoes with a black marker before a go-see with a beauty editor at a magazine. I didn't have a computer, so I took the train daily to Soho, to the Apple Store. It became my makeshift office, my writing hub, to check emails, write, decompress, regroup my thoughts of wanting to toss my modeling portfolio into the trash. The only thing keeping me hopeful was this one job I had booked. It was with a well-known shaving brand. The photo shoot was actually the worst shoot I had experienced. Of all days, my cramps warned me of what was happening as I ran for the train. I could feel it happening. The tide had slowly come in, and it happened to be the day I booked my first advertising job. It was a body job. It was legs, hips, backside. I wasn't going to wimp out, despite that I didn't have personal supplies and had to borrow from the receptionist at the photo studio. I wanted the images in my portfolio. I focused on looking as long as I possibly could so that I wasn't the body parts model who was cursed. When the check finally came, I deposited it with so much belief that I wasn't wasting my time. That day has stayed with me during every rejection as ammo to keep going. But still I had gone over to First Avenue about becoming an egg donor. It seemed like the perfect solution to keep my modeling and pay rent. It paid a humongous amount. I would have gladly given away some eggs. But when I had talked about family health, I had accidentally mentioned Dad's history with alcohol, and I wasn't able to continue into the egg donor program. During this time, Dad wrote me 2 short letters. I hope this helps, Dad's letter read. Maybe you can buy a couple bananas and some more pasta. Eggs are good too if you like them with little sausage. I'll send you a little more when I can. If you take a PR job, it might prove to be valuable as a modeling or design contact. I'm very proud of you. When I read the word eggs, I was tempted to tell him about the egg donor letdown, but instead, we talked about taking a job in public relations. I even went to the interview, but I didn't want the job, really. I didn't need a lunch break, and I was fine with 25-cent bananas from the fruit stand. Dad told me he was renting a house right near my old high school. I felt inspired to visit him. Dad had a house, a backyard, normal neighbors. Maybe it was a better period for him, the first time he had sent me a little cash. A week later, he sent another short letter. It read, I hope you find less expensive accommodations. You're going to make it big time. I know this. Buy an apple, some oranges, maybe even instant potatoes, an onion, or a little candy on sale, maybe a couple grapes. Eggs are always easy. A piece of cheese for an omelet. I will call you later. I had begged in a voicemail to my landlord in Astoria, Queens to end the lease. That's when I put only what I could into a suitcase. Felt like a failure, but I wasn't going to give up modeling. I held strong, pulling my suitcase, heading for the subway to a friend's place in Hoboken. Throughout the winter and spring, I felt closer to Dad suddenly. We had survival in common, the journey he spoke about not being easy, and we would bounce our difficulties off each other. I'd booked real modeling work with real brands. It was happening. The bags I was carrying and my suitcase started to feel heavier, realizing it wasn't often enough. The job I had booked with the shaving company was on my mind. It was about persistence and patience. I just had to keep trying. Dad and I couldn't help each other get ahead, but our conversations had become more than just him at his weakest point. It was me, too, debating my choices, wondering if I made a mistake, and sharing with him my plans for how to continue on. He would tell me about the medication he was on for his gout attacks, something, the refills he needed, or the cigarette he was rolling. Sometimes we wouldn't talk for weeks. Other times, a couple times a day. It all depended on the moment, how fragile it seemed. As the summer started, he said he was worried he'd be evicted from the house near my high school. But I let it pass. I had my own stability, my own survival on my mind. Over the summer, I had finally rounded up enough modeling paychecks to feel a cushion. And right now, I'm living with Todd. And I could picture him meeting Dad one day. I tuck my pen inside my journal and listen for a few more minutes to Dad. My issues are situational, he says. He talks rapidly. He feels the shelter is unsafe. He wants to return to the suburbs, to be in the same area as the greenhouse was. He's doing part-time work under the table with a construction company, in sales. And when I tell him he could find something else in relation to his interest in psychology and helping people, he explains that desperation makes people do desperate things. After he died, I will discover in his medical history records that he was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and hypertension. My chest feels tense while he tells me he's grabbing lunch at the rescue mission. I imagine him lying on a cot at the shelter for a few nights. His thinning hair, his deep sighs as he settles, the same clothes from yesterday or a week on, his eyes closing, his belongings beside him. I could picture his glasses folded in his hands peacefully. He's falling asleep there. Perhaps under his cot is a tattered World Almanac, or his little orange New Testament, or a book about the future or space. And he's quiet and contemplating his options for tomorrow and life beyond this dimension and time. Please surround yourself with positive people. Things will get better, I said before we hung up. I wanted to know his ring size. I will try to find him a new ring. A part of me wants to greatly live in the moment, be with my boyfriend, make some dinner plans, walk hand in hand to the seaport. Maybe we'll have French onion soup. Not think about Dad. I also know Dad needs this ring. It will help him, I tell myself as I grab my purse. It will be a reminder of hope. It will be shiny, and the design will inspire him to stay on the path, to keep his face toward the sun, I tell myself as I get on the train. I head to Soho near the Apple Store. I know the area well. There are always street vendors near Prince Street and Broadway. I dash up the subway stairs at Prince Street while promising myself to visit Syracuse soon, to call Dad more often. I remind myself to write him a letter as I walk on Broadway quick with a shuffle of foot traffic around me. I study and scan the designs on the rings at the jewelry vendor street stand. I search to find one just right. I go to another jewelry stand and another, till I spot the ring that has a similar intricate maze design on it. It's similar enough to his original, I decide. I buy it along with a plain silver band. There's a discount for buying two. I hoped having these rings would uplift Dad's spirits. By looking at them, he could believe that lunch at the mission wasn't going to be forever. A reminder. There was still time for him, and the clock hadn't run out. He could still carve his own path and leave a crevice. And the bends in the road were to look back on as corners of strength. He'd back out from all these dead ends. I'd give him the rings the next time I visited Syracuse later that fall. He'd have them on the morning when he died in the fire.